He's going to be featured in a magnificent event tonight at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, 7 p.m. Y'all come. Let me bring forth the great, legendary attorney Lennox Hines. Good morning, Attorney Lennox Hines.
Good morning, Joanne. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful and better now that Lennox Hines is in town, y'all. Lennox Hines, my. If he holds a position that really has no match in the field of legal justice work, social justice fighting all over the world. And he is absolutely at the top of the chain in terms of attorneys that we admire and attorneys we hold dear. Attorney Lennox Hines, and he's here as representing the people's law tonight. And we're so grateful to Charles Ezra Farrell for bringing him to Detroit to the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. Talk to us about your extraordinary legacy and life, Attorney Lennox Hines. And I want everybody to beat me to the Charles H. Wright Museum tonight to be in that audience.
Thank you for inviting me to be on the program.
Thank you for being a special guest on Black television.
Okay. Is this a radio program or
it's
TV?
It's TV and radio.
Oh, okay.
And it's
All
also online, and it's also in the Virgin Islands.
Oh, great.
It's black-owned media, and it's unapologetically African media.
Okay. All right. I wrote a book, which is an adaptation of the petition that we filed at the United Nations in 1978. It was only the second time that a formal petition was filed at the United Nations accusing the United States of human rights violations. The first petition was brought by Paul Robeson and William Patterson.
Mama, we charge genocide.
And there was a book after that written by William Patterson called We Charge Genocide.
That's right.
Our petition that was brought in 1978 raised the question of human rights violations, and in particular, a critique of the criminal justice system that resulted in political prisoners in the United States.
Yes.
We decided to do an update, a second edition of that book, which I will be signing copies, autographing copies after my comments tonight. That has two new chapters, one dealing with racism in the application of the death penalty in the United States, and also the issue of police crimes. But let me share with you some comments that I want to make today.
Yes.
Concerning the criminal justice system,
my Lord,
in the United States. And I want to share my comments from the perspective of a practitioner.
Come on now.
In that system.
Yes.
If we examine the effects and results of the criminal justice system within the United States, it becomes clear to anyone who is looking at this, the operation of the system in a open and unbiased way, that the system operates to the detriment of blacks, Puerto Ricans, Native Americans, Mexican Americans, and other minorities who become victims of what I call the deliberate governmental policies and practices that deny them their basic human rights, abridge the fundamental freedoms solely on the basis of race, color, descent, or national ethnic origin. Now, these racist practices and policies are sharply manifested by what we see being played out almost daily on our TV screens throughout the United States. And that is what I call police crime. The police and their operations are the most egregious human rights violations being committed against people of color in the United States. The irony of this is that the phenomenon is not new. It is persistent, it is endemic, and it is chronic. The Kerner Commission identified it as one of the major causative factors for urban rebellions in the 1960s. In 1980, I presented a report on police crimes in the United States to the United Nations. And that was the United Nations Conference on Crime Prevention in Caracas, Venezuela. The issues identified in that report could have been written today, 39 years later.
Wow.
American society functions normally through an elaborate framework of laws. Poverty, racism, injustice, and oppression, people at home and abroad, are not acts that fall outside of the law. The law is inextricably entwined in its operation. In fact, all of these conditions result from the system of law. Now, every 4th of July, you hear politicians proclaiming loudly and proudly that we're a country that operates under the rule of law. But I contend that the law in the United States have never been a friend of black people.
My.
It was a law which transformed black people into capital goods through the system of chattel slavery.
Yes.
It was a law that denied them their humanity.
That's right.
And it was a law that divested Native Americans from their land, their culture, and their future. And so every 4th of July, you hear school children recite the preamble to the United States Constitution without knowing or understanding the context. When the founding fathers of the country, all of them incidentally slaveholders, George Washington, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and all of the others who announced to the world, and then they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal,
My Lord.
that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
These words were loudly and widely proclaimed to the world while these hypocrites were looking straight in the faces of 700,000 African slaves,
My Lord.
20% of the nation that they claim to be free.
My Lord.
The very constitution of this new foundation of equally created men rejected the humanity of Africans by counting them only as 3/5 of a person for the numbers of elected representatives.
That's right.
For which the state was eligible in the first National Congress. Now, why do I talk about this short review of history on racism in the law, and why is that relevant? I contend that while the 13th Amendment ostensibly abolished slavery, we as African Americans are still facing the badges
Yes.
and indicia of slavery
Yes.
which is reflected in the chronic and persistent racism in the
Yes.
criminal justice
Come on
system.
now.
Hundreds of blacks and other minorities are killed by the police every year, and the killers know that they can continue to kill, they could continue to maim and cripple minorities with any expectation of judicial reprimand or punishment because they operate behind what? The shield of racism.
My Lord.
The fundamental remedy to address police crimes in the United States, I contend, is accountability.
Yes.
The police must be accountable to the communities they serve.
Yes.
But herein lies the contradiction. What is the role of the police in our system? We are told to protect and serve. But whose community interests are they protecting and serving?
That's right.
The economic system in the United States, which is monopoly capitalism, relegates minorities to the bottom of the barrel
My Lord.
and relies on the police to keep them in their place.
Yes.
Hence the term law and order being trumpeted by some politicians, including the xenophobic, racist, pathological liar
Mama.
who sits in the White House.
Woo!
They are claiming law and order,
Yeah.
but that is only to keep those who are in the bottom of the barrel in place. Increasing unemployment brings with it increasing community struggles, confronting the inequities of the economic order.
Yes.
Consequently, increased community struggles are met with increased repression by the police. Today, the police and law enforcement primary function is to protect the economic interests of corporate America and
My.
maintain the existing economic order. Therefore, the police are ultimately accountable to the corporate interests in the United States. Only when these corporate economic interests are jeopardized by the lawlessness of the police would corporate America take the necessary steps to make the police accountable to the communities in which they serve. Therefore, I contend that the communities which are affected by the lawlessness of the police must force corporate America to choose between maintaining the existing structure of police lawlessness
Yes.
and face economic losses or make the police accountable to the communities in which they work. I believe that to achieve community accountability, our community should develop a multifaceted strategy which includes utilizing both the criminal
Yes.
and civil law, including suing individual police officers, police departments,
Yes.
and municipalities for money damages. The National Conference of Black Lawyers has embarked on a program to train a cadre of lawyers around the United States
Yes.
with the specific skills in suing police officers, police departments, municipalities for money damages arising from charges of police crimes. That project is called the Law Enforcement Accountability Project, LEAP, and that is being organized by the National Conference of Black Lawyers,
My.
and it should be funded and supported by our communities.
That's right.
But communities must be cognizant on the limitations of the law and understand power ultimately lies in the people
Say
and
that.
not in the courts. Therefore, I encourage people to utilize their First Amendment rights
Yes.
and take to the streets.
Yes.
Take to the streets to address their grievances. And we, as people's lawyers, will defend them
That's right.
as they take to the streets. Additionally, communities have to utilize selective boycotts,
That's right.
targeting certain corporate interests within their communities thereby forcing corporate America to choose between supporting the lawlessness of the police or risking their economic interests. Those are some of my thoughts, and I really thank you, Joanne, for having this program,
Well,
which in fact provides some new perspectives, different perspectives for our communities as we struggle in this difficult times that we are facing. And I must say that we have to be constantly vigilant.
yes.